TIAN X Science is where science meets the unknown. And my name's TIAN. I'm from China.
Did you know that right now, there are about 37 trillion cells in your body? Every single one is alive. Each has its own boundary, and they have absolutely no idea that they are just a tiny part of something immense. What if our universe is actually the same? Before you rush to think about the universe, let's start with a single cell. You probably still remember what you learned in biology class. The cell membrane, the nucleus, the mitochondria, and the liquid environment surrounding it all. The cell membrane is the outer boundary. The nucleus is like the control center. The mitochondria act as the power plants, and all these structures float in a liquid, communicating and functioning with each other. Sounds pretty ordinary, right? But now, let me describe something else in a different way. A closed structure with a defined boundary, containing a vast network of filaments connecting energy nodes, which continuously process energy. The entire system maintains a relatively stable temperature, yet there are localized areas of extreme heat and cold. It was born from a tremendous explosion and has been expanding outward ever since, and now it seems to be in its middle age. That description actually fits two things at once. One is a human cell, and the other is the observable universe. Look at these two images. On the left are neurons in the human brain. On the right is the large-scale structure of the universe, where galaxy clusters are connected by the cosmic web, formed by vast amounts of dark matter and gas. In 2020, a team of researchers from the University of Bologna and the University of Verona in Italy published a peer-reviewed paper specifically comparing the similarity between the neural network of the human brain and the structure of the cosmic web. They measured the number of connections between nodes, the way they cluster, and the ratio of high-density regions to empty voids. The final similarity coefficient they calculated was 0.87. For reference, 1.0 represents a perfect match, and 0.87 is absurdly high. This is no longer a simple coincidence you might chat about over dinner. But hold on, I need to be clear up front. This content isn't meant to tell you that the universe is definitely alive, because nobody knows the answer. What we're really here to discuss is why the universe could be a form of life. This question is no longer just a philosophical fantasy. Even a growing number of serious physicists are beginning to discuss it openly. What follows might just overload your brain's CPU, because the scale of the universe is so vast that it completely defies human intuition. First, look at your hand, about 17 centimeters. Zoom in 10 times and you'll see skin cells, about 0.1 millimeter in size. Zoom in further and you see the cell nucleus, about 6 micrometers. Further down is a DNA strand, only 2 nanometers wide. Shrink down further to a single atom, about 0.1 nanometers. And then, even deeper inside, is the atomic nucleus, 0.0001 nanometers. Let's pause here for a moment and take a good look at this atom. Over 99.999999% of its interior is actually empty space. The nucleus in the center is ridiculously small compared to the entire atom. If you were to scale up an atom to the size of a football stadium, the nucleus would be like a single glass marble placed on the halfway line, while the electrons would be drifting somewhere in the stands, and you couldn't even be sure where they are. Now, let's pull the camera back to the universe, and you'll find that it's surprisingly similar. The universe is also over 99.999999% empty space. Galaxy clusters, stars, nebulae, and all the matter we can see actually make up an extremely tiny fraction of the universe's total volume. The rest is void, darkness, and nothingness. This brings up an old idea that's almost a cliché. Doesn't an atom look like a miniature universe? But what's truly worth noting isn't this, but the fact that the atoms that make up your body come from the universe itself. Every iron atom in your blood was forged in a supernova explosion. Every calcium atom in your bones once burned inside a star for millions of years before being cast out into the cosmos upon the star's death. In other words, you don't exist in the universe. You are a part of the universe. And this also means that when we ask, could the universe just be a single cell in a much larger life form? We are also asking if we, life forms made of stardust, might also be just tiny components of some higher structure. Every cell has a cell membrane, and it's not just a simple wall. It's an active boundary that decides what can enter and what must leave. It separates the inside from the outside and keeps the cell alive. Our universe also seems to have something similar. It's called the cosmic event horizon, the boundary of the observable universe, located about 46 billion light-years away from us. Beyond this boundary, space may continue to stretch on, perhaps even infinitely. The problem is, we can't see what's out there, we can't get there, and we can't send any signals there. In a sense, the behavior of this cosmic boundary is a lot like a cell membrane. This raises a question almost no one asks in school. What is actually outside this membrane? The physics community currently has about 3 mainstream hypotheses. The first, it's more universe. The universe continues to extend beyond our horizon, still filled with galaxies, stars, and planets. It could be infinite, or it could not be. But either way, it's just more universe. The second, the multiverse. Our universe is just one of countless bubble universes, each with different physical laws, different constants, and a different Big Bang origin. They float like soap bubbles, occasionally colliding. And the third, which is the strangest, the universe truly ends somewhere, but beyond that end is not empty space, nor another universe, but something that is completely beyond the concept of space itself. A form of existence that our current physics is utterly incapable of describing. This is because all of human physics was developed from inside the universe. It simply doesn't have the tools to define what outside the universe even means. It's like a liver cell in your body. It has no idea what's outside of it. A cell living in the liver wouldn't understand the concept of Italy or the ocean or Tuesday. These things are real, and they even affect the cell's environment. But the cell will never know they exist. So, for our universe, what are the equivalents of Italy, the ocean, and Tuesday? Could there be something completely beyond our range of perception existing outside this membrane? No one knows. But one thing we can be sure of is that if the universe really is a cell, the life form it belongs to would be unimaginably vast. And we might have never detected its existence, just as the liver cell has never detected the existence of Tuesday. Next, things get even weirder. Dark energy is one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in modern physics. It's real, and it is definitely affecting the universe. Scientists can even measure its effects with great precision. But the problem is, no one knows where it comes from. Now, let's place it within our hypothesis for today. What does a cell live on? Energy. A cell gets energy from glucose and oxygen, then uses it to maintain its structure, perform functions, and stay alive. This energy isn't created by the cell out of thin air. It comes from the external environment, from the larger organism it's a part of. And dark energy, similarly, does not come from the ordinary matter within the universe. It's not produced by stars, not by black holes, nor by any known cosmic process. Its behavior is more like an intrinsic energy of space itself, as if cosmic space naturally possesses some kind of background energy that increases as the universe expands. So, what if dark energy isn't something the universe produces on its own? What if it's energy the universe is absorbing from an external source, from outside the universe, from that much larger entity? A cell embedded in a living organism is constantly bathed in an energy-rich environment. This energy comes from the organism's metabolism, from large-scale processes the cell is completely unaware of. The cell doesn't understand any of this. It just receives the energy and continues to live. Could the universe be doing the same thing? Could so-called dark energy, one of the greatest mysteries of modern physics, actually be the metabolic energy of some giant life form, and our entire universe is just a single cell within its body? I'm not telling you this is the truth. I'm just telling you that this hypothesis doesn't currently contradict any known observational data, and to this day, no one has been able to definitively rule it out. The structure of the cosmic web looks almost identical to brain neurons. Most of the universe's interior is empty, just like an atom. Our universe has a boundary similar to a cell membrane, and at the same time, there is an invisible, unknown source of energy continuously flooding the entire cosmos. One coincidence is a coincidence. Two coincidences make you curious. Three coincidences start to look suspicious. And when a fourth one appears, you should at least start to ask seriously, is all of this really just a coincidence? And now, the question gets darker. Because what follows is going to sound even more outlandish. And the following fact has kept countless physicists awake at night for decades. The universe appears to be finely tuned. First, there's the gravitational constant, which determines the strength of gravity. Its current value is poised in an incredibly delicate balance. If it were slightly stronger, the universe would have rapidly collapsed within seconds of the Big Bang. If it were slightly weaker, matter would never have clumped together to form galaxies, stars, and planets. Then there's the strong nuclear force, the force that binds atomic nuclei together. It is also frighteningly precise. If it were just 2% stronger, the element hydrogen wouldn't exist in the universe. If it were 2% weaker, no elements heavier than hydrogen would have formed. No carbon, no oxygen, and no U. Then there is the cosmological constant, related to dark energy. Its level of precision is so absurd it's almost impossible to comprehend. If it were off by just 1 part in 10 to the power of 120, the universe would have either expanded too quickly for matter to form, or it would have collapsed instantly. What does 10 to the 120th power even mean? The total number of atoms in the entire observable universe is only about 10 to the 80th power. This means the precision of the cosmological constant requires more decimal places than there are atoms in the entire universe. This is far beyond a level that can be easily explained by good luck. Currently, there are only about 3 explanations that physicists seriously discuss. The first, pure coincidence. These constants just happen to fall within the narrow range that allows for life. And the reason we observe them is simply because if they weren't suitable for life, we wouldn't be here to observe them. This is known as the anthropic principle. It's logically sound, but many find it unsatisfying because it doesn't really explain anything. It just says that because we exist, the universe must be suitable for our existence. The second explanation is the multiverse. This suggests that there could be an infinite number of universes, each with a different combination of physical constants. We just happen to live in one that permits life. This logic is also sound, but it faces the same problem. It still doesn't truly explain anything. Why are these constants the way they are? This leads to the third possibility, and it's the one most likely to send a chill down your spine. These constants were actually set. What does set imply? It could mean there is some entity we might call God, a higher being outside the universe who deliberately chose these parameters. It could also mean these parameters are the result of some natural selection mechanism, much like biological evolution, where only universes suitable for survival continue to exist. Of course, there's an even stranger possibility. The chemical environment inside a cell is also precisely regulated. pH level, salt concentration, temperature, cell membrane voltage. None of these values are random. They are all maintained by the organism the cell belongs to. The organism's metabolism dictates the environment the cell needs. So, what if the physical constants in our universe, like gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong nuclear force, are not random either? What if they are just part of the internal environment of a much larger life form? Like a liver cell, it has no understanding of why its pH must be maintained at 7.4. It doesn't know the reason. It only knows it must be so. And here, things start to get truly strange, because this part is actually supported by a scientific theory. In 1992, theoretical physicist Lee Smolin proposed a bold hypothesis called cosmological natural selection. The general idea is that when a black hole forms within a universe, the singularity at its center, where the laws of physics break down completely, might trigger the birth of a new universe. This new universe would have slightly different physical constants, much like the random mutations that occasionally occur during DNA replication. Consequently, Universes that are better at producing black holes will give birth to more offspring universes, which in turn inherit similar physical parameters. Over time, a form of natural selection could occur among universes, just like among living organisms. The universes best suited for making black holes would proliferate, while unsuitable ones would slowly die out. This raises the question: what kind of universe is best at forming black holes? The answer: one with complex chemical structures, heavy elements, extremely long-lived stars, and stable galaxies. In other words, you need a world remarkably similar to our own. Smolin's theory suggests that universes may be evolving like life forms. The ones that survive and reproduce are those that are conducive to forming complex structures, suitable for stars, for planets, for oceans, and even for life. This means our existence might not be an accident, but rather the result of the universe's natural selection. And if black holes really do spawn new universes, then our own universe may have already produced countless offspring. They are born from the remnants of dead stars, yet they will never know where they came from. And right now, at the center of the Milky Way, a supermassive black hole with the mass of 4 million suns is being compressed into an infinitesimally small point. Now, the question starts to resemble life itself. What happens to a living cell? It absorbs energy, processes energy, uses energy to work, produces waste, and eventually dies. What about the universe? It too gets its energy from the Big Bang and dark energy, then organizes this energy into stars, planets, and complex structures, and then further organizes it into increasingly complex structures: galaxies, stars, planets, and even life. It then spends billions of years slowly consuming this energy while producing waste. And this waste is actually entropy, the process of order slowly descending into chaos. Eventually, the universe will also die. In the distant future, when the last star has burned out and the last black hole has evaporated, the entire universe will enter a state of maximum entropy. The temperature will be completely uniform, with no energy gradients, no chemical reactions, and no complex structures. Everything will fall into a state of complete silence. And this state is almost identical to that of a dead cell. It still exists, it still occupies space, but it no longer functions. It is no longer alive. And we, right now, are in the midst of the universe's metabolism. Stars are still burning, planets are still forming, life is emerging. If we are truly part of some larger living entity, then the universe today might be equivalent to a cell that is still actively working, a stage of ongoing metabolism. As for what function it's performing, we may never know. Just like a liver cell in your body, it filters toxins and produces proteins, but it has no idea that it's actually sustaining you as a living being. So, in a life form made of universes, what function does the universe itself serve? No one knows, and perhaps no one ever will. But we can at least continue to ask a smaller, yet stranger question. Does this life form know that we exist? And here the story takes a true turn. Your cells don't know you exist, but you know they exist. You, a whole being composed of 37 trillion cells, have ultimately become something that those individual cells could never comprehend. You have consciousness. You can think. You can be curious. And in the middle of the night, you can suddenly start to question what the universe is. And every single cell that makes you up cannot understand these things. But when they come together, they create you. So now the real question arises. What if consciousness is something that can emerge at any scale? Could it be that a higher life form, composed of countless universes, has also developed consciousness, just as you have from your cells? Could it also be thinking, be puzzled, and in some kind of night that we can't comprehend, be pondering what it is? And what's more terrifying, could it be that at this very moment, the one actually thinking these thoughts for it is us? In other words, could it be the universe, through us, thinking about itself? But don't be too quick to dismiss this as mere philosophical fantasy, because physics has actually offered some very wild possibilities. The first possibility, higher dimensions. In string theory and M theory, currently among the leading candidates for a theory of everything, The universe actually requires 10 or even 11 dimensions of space-time to work. But we can only perceive 4 three-spatial dimensions plus 1 time dimension. If the other dimensions exist, they might be curled up on an incredibly small scale, too small for us to detect, or they might extend in directions our instruments simply cannot point. This means we could be nested within a higher dimensional space without being aware of it at all. You can imagine a 2D stick figure in a 2D world. It can only move forward, backward, left, and right. It would never understand what up and down are, nor would it know it's just a drawing on the surface of a 3D object. And that 3D object might, in turn, belong to an even larger space. Perhaps we are those stick figures. The second possibility is even crazier. Our universe may have been created. Alan Guth, one of the founders of the cosmic inflation theory, once published a rather mind-bending paper. He argued that it is theoretically possible for a highly advanced civilization to create a brand new universe in a laboratory. And this isn't science fiction. It's a serious physics hypothesis. Under specific conditions, an extreme burst of energy could trigger a new inflationary expansion, a new Big Bang. Subsequently, a brand new bubble of space-time would rapidly expand and form its own universe. The strangest part is that this new universe wouldn't expand inside the lab. It would expand into its own new dimension of space-time. Its connection to the lab might only exist through the initial quantum event. In other words, for any life inside that new universe, what they would see is a Big Bang, an origin of their universe, a beginning of time. But for the creators outside the lab, it might just be a brief experiment. Flip a switch, observe the results, and then head off for lunch. If this is something that humans could theoretically achieve in a few 100 million or billion years, who's to say it hasn't already been done by someone else long before? Perhaps our universe itself is just an experiment conducted by some advanced civilization. First, let's talk about what's actually confirmed. There is evidence that the structure of the cosmic web and the neural networks of the brain are indeed highly similar morphologically. The universe and cells also share many similar features: boundaries, energy flow mechanisms, structure formation principles, and even origin patterns. These similarities have reached a point where they can't be easily dismissed with a simple coincidence. At the same time, the physical constants in our solar universe are fine-tuned to an almost unbelievable degree. To this day, the scientific community still lacks a completely natural, unified, and satisfying explanation. And more crucially, modern physics does not actually rule out these possibilities. It doesn't rule out that our universe could be nested in a higher dimensional space, that it could have been created by an advanced civilization, or even that it could be just one of countless, reproducing universes. And then there's the ever-inexplicable dark energy, whose behavior does indeed resemble some kind of energy input from outside the universe. Of course, none of this proves that the universe is alive. But it does show one thing. The question itself is a scientific one, not just a fantasy. More importantly, to this day, no one has been able to truly prove it wrong. And what's really worth taking away is something else. Across all scales observed by humanity, from the quantum world to the cosmic scale, nature seems to continually repeat the same structural logic. Networks, boundaries, energy flows, self-organizing structures, complex systems. These patterns span nearly 45 orders of magnitude. They are certainly not the same thing, but they always appear in remarkably similar ways. What does this mean? Perhaps it's just the most incredible coincidence in the history of science. But it's also possible that the universe itself has some kind of template, a set of rules that it runs repeatedly, a method for continuously replicating complex structures. And if this pattern can create life on the cellular scale and shape the universe on the galactic scale, then the real question might not be, is our universe a cell in some life form? But rather, at what scale does this pattern stop? Look down at your hand. Inside are 37 trillion cells. Each has its own boundary, its own metabolism, its own operating system, and not a single one of them is aware of your existence. Yet here you are, standing, looking at the starry sky, and starting to wonder, what else might be looking at you? And this very act of thinking, this questioning of existence, this sudden sense of wonder when you look up at the universe, perhaps that is what is truly special. Not the cells, not the chemical reactions, not the stars, but the very act of being aware that you exist. And so, we stop here, after a journey to the very edge of thought, where the lines between science, philosophy, and pure wonder begin to blur. From a single cell in your body to the grand cosmic web of galaxies, there seems to be an invisible symphony playing out, a pattern that repeats itself with haunting familiarity. Perhaps the greatest takeaway from this journey isn't how small we are, but how incredibly profound our consciousness is. Our very ability to ask these questions. For 13.8 billion years, the universe expanded in silence. Then, on a tiny blue speck of dust, matter forged in dead stars rearranged itself, woke up, and for the first time began to wonder about its own existence. Every time you look up at the night sky and feel that sense of awe, every time a strange idea sparks in your mind, perhaps that is the universe itself admiring its own beauty and exploring its own mysteries through your eyes and your mind. We are not just beings living in the universe. We are the universe's way of becoming self-aware. Your curiosity isn't just yours. It is the curiosity of the cosmos itself. So after all of this, what are your thoughts? Are all these incredible similarities just a grand series of coincidences? Or are they signs of a deeper principle, of life on a scale we cannot possibly imagine? Has this video changed, even just a little, the way you see yourself or the night sky above? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read and learn from everyone's perspective. And as always, I'm incredibly curious to know, where on our amazing planet are you watching this from? Thank you for exploring to the very end with 10. If you were as amazed as I was, don't forget to like, share this video, and subscribe to TNX Science so we don't miss each other on our next journey. For now, goodbye, and see you again.